And we begin this broadcast with some breaking news coming in. The Bharatiya Janata Party is now defending the 3 rupee fuel price hike. And what is the defense that's coming in? It is the first response from the BJP. Now, the BJP says India saw lowest fuel price rise, and they are claiming that India shielded its citizens from the oil shock. And now there is a comparison that has been made between India and also global economies. And this is the comparison that the BJP is currently putting out, that how global fuel prices in the last few months have been rising, and the rise in global fuel prices have been far more than the rise that we're seeing in India this morning. And the BJP is also saying that this is an impact that has been limited to just 3%. So the BJP, in its first response on the fuel price hike, amid the criticism from the opposition, is crediting the government for absorbing the oil shock and for also saying that OMCs over the last few months have absorbed 1,000 crores of daily losses. And they're linking the oil surge to the tensions that persist in the Strait of Hormuz amid the escalating crisis in West Asia. Now, the BJP also goes on to say that the world in the last few days has seen about 10% to 90% fuel price spikes, and that India, on its part, has handled the crisis better. So this is the first response coming in from the BJP after the rise in fuel prices. So this is BJP's Amit Malviya, who says, and I quote, that the surge in global fuel prices since the outbreak of the West Asia conflict offers a revealing comparison of how different countries have managed economic shocks. The closure of the Strait of Hormuz, the world's most critical oil choke point, and the prolonged disruption of shipments sent Brent crude soaring above the $100 per barrel mark, though through much of April and early May. And across the world, consumers have felt the impact directly at fuel stations. But India is standing out as a striking exception. So here, the BJP goes on to say that India is a striking exception. Pragya is with us. Pragya, I want to come across to you. Pragya, right now the BJP is drawing a comparison between India and global economies, talking about how the government over the last few months has absorbed the oil shock and has ensured that the common man does not feel the pinch. But the opposition comes with the criticism that, elections are over and now the common man is going to be burdened. The BJP on its part is showing a comparison of how different economies across the world have increased the prices significantly on a higher benchmark.
Absolutely, and in fact, to substantiate their claim that India has absorbed whatever the shock of oil industry that has come on the oil companies for quite some time now, almost 76 days, I would say, ever since the war broke out. In fact, it has been 4 years since India has increased any of the oil, petrol and diesel prices. And in fact, this is the first time in 4 years that a slight upward increase in the petrol and diesel prices of 3 rupees each has been done by the government. And when we convert that into percentage, it is just 3.5%. And if you compare that 3.5% with even the advanced economies, the contrast is stark. In fact, when you go to US, their markets are directly impacted by the crude international prices. They have, approximately 45% increase in petrol prices, and so has Singapore. And in fact, many of the West Asian economies like Pakistan, Malaysia, they all have been impacted very badly, and they have passed on that particular shock to the consumers. The volatility that has not been absorbed by the government at all. But if you look at the Indian context, Indian government has not passed that on to the people, but in fact that has been also passed on to the companies. The companies have been asked to bear the losses because when it comes to international market, the profit was also not passed on to the consumers. That is the logic that has been given to companies when they've been asked to bear this shock that has come from disruption of the global chain and supply in the global market of oil. In fact, closure of Strait of Hormuz has put enormous pressure on the Indian economy as well. Right. Despite the fact government believes that this is a very slight increase compared to other economies, and we have given a list of economies who are, in fact, they are advanced economies, yet the increase in petrol and diesel prices is very substantial and significant.
So this increase, Pragya, also comes, let's remember, 77 days after the war started. And the BJP says right now India is standing out as a striking exception. They're showing comparisons of the kind of fuel price hike that has taken place in global economies between the 23rd of February to the 15th of May. And the BJP is now citing that nearly every major big economy has seen sharp increase in petrol and diesel prices. In several countries, the rise has been staggering. They're pointing at about, almost 90% hike in petrol prices in a few nations, more than 100% hike in diesel prices. So that's the defense coming in. But now let's talk about what the opposition has been saying. The opposition says that this shows that the government only cares about electioneering. There are more responses coming in from the opposition too. Let's also put that. So how's the BJP planning to counter the narrative that the opposition is pushing, that you waited for elections to get over?
Well, BJP has always said that they have waited for 4 years to increase this price. Because if you remember, Mr. Hardeep Puri, while speaking at a public event, said every day the loss to these public oil companies, sector oil companies, is 1,000 crore rupees. And in fact, when it is calculated annually, it is 2 lakh crore. There is some kind of respite that government needs to give these oil companies. And the fact is that there has been no increase in the prices of petrol and diesel for past 4 years, irrespective of the prices in the international market. Government decided that this time it is time for oil companies also to absorb these oil shockers, and in fact not to pass on to the consumers. Consumers have been insulated for that for four years approximately. It has, because in last 4 years there had been many elections, but there was no increase in prices then. But because this is a global uncertainty situation as far as oil market is concerned, Strait of Hormuz is closed and no one knows when it is going to open. So government is preparing for every contingency, whatever will arise due to this particular situation in the global market. And we are not just the only economy that are facing this. In fact, the advanced economies like US, Singapore, they are also facing the same situation.
And as you talk about the advanced economies and the price hike that has been seen, my colleague Ankit is also with us, getting us the ground situation. Because after the fuel price hike, what is the reaction in the common man? I'll come to you, Ankit, but before that, viewers, let's also talk about this comparison that has been made to put things into perspective. 77 days after the war, there is a hike in fuel prices. We'll do the comparison city-wise, but before that, let's also take you through. Let's take you through global fuel prices and how they've been on the rise. And we're going to show you the comparison here. Here we are going to show you the comparison. Now let's talk about what has been the rise in petrol prices across the world. Now the United Kingdom saw a 22% increase in petrol prices since the 28th of February. When it comes to Hong Kong, there was a 25% hike. In Germany, there was a 27% hike. In the Netherlands, it was 28%. In Italy, 30%. In Spain, 34%. In Japan, 30 to 35%. So this is the comparison that the BJP is pointing at to talk about the difference between India and how the government here in India absorbed the shock. But the opposition is not convinced. Before we get you more reactions, listen to what the BJP has been saying.
3 साल से लगभग जो युद्ध चल रहा है दुनिया में, बहुत सारा संकट दूसरे देशों में आया है। माननीय मोदी जी ने हमारे ऊपर आँच आने नहीं दिए थे, केवल गैस का दाम बढ़ा था। लेकिन ये सब जानते थे कि कब बढ़ेगा, तो बढ़ना जितना कम से कम बढ़ाया है। ऑयल कंपनियां सारी नुकसान में चल रही है, हजारों लाखों करोड़ उनको नुकसान हो चुकी है, लेकिन उसका भी सीमा होता है। तो जितना मिनिमम बढ़ाना चाहिए सरकार उतना बढ़ाए।
राष्ट्रीय स्तर के ऊपर जिस प्रकार की परिस्थितियां हैं विगत कुछ महीनों से, उसमें पूरे दुनिया के अंतर्गत पेट्रोल और डीजल की प्राइसेस बढ़ी हैं। कई विकसित देश में 2 गुने टाइप की हो गई। प्रधानमंत्री ने जो अपील करी है कि हम जो भी सेविंग्स कर सकते हैं, इट इज नॉट, प्रधानमंत्री ये नहीं कहा कि आप अपना काम बंद कर दीजिए। कभी इस प्रकार का बहुत मिथ चल रहा है कि ये बंद कर दो, वो बंद कर दो, लेकिन जो फालतू खर्चे हैं वो बंद किए जा सकते हैं। जो मिनिमम आवश्यक ट्रैवलिंग है वो की जा सकती है। पब्लिक ट्रांसपोर्ट्स का हम सहारा ले सकते हैं, उनके माध्यम से कर सकते हैं। तो उसके लिए भी एक संदेश है। और अभी दाम बढ़े हैं, क्रूड के दाम कम होंगे तो भारत सरकार फिर कोई निर्णय करेगी।